Good evening and welcome to the Spencer Board of Selectmen workshop meeting of December 17th, 2014. It's roughly 6 p.m. and we're in the McCourt Social Hall. I'd like to request that everyone rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to start off the meeting by having Wendy and Donnie Berthium come forward with some acknowledgements for the parade of lights we had on December 6th. We weren't able to host them at our last meeting, so we're offering to have them come forward and give their thanks.
I was busy.
Hi guys.
Once again, thank you to you guys, everybody that helped and everybody that rode. It was a blast this year, and once again, coming over Main Street Hill, there was 72 million people waving and watching, so that's the goal of this, and it seems to grow every year, and I know that's Wendy and I's favorite event that the town does, and I'm sure you guys is too, so but we missed our thank yous. And I didn't have enough information the night of the, when we gave out the prizes to do this, but now I do, so bear with me. See what I get? Look at, it's all typed out.
You're prepped. You are the most prepared man.
You did a good job,
I didn't
Wendy.
do that.
You are a prepared man. Thank you, Wendy.
It would be written on an old receipt, and I would have it spelled wrong.
I can kind of see the strings right now.
Back of a napkin.
All right, so, what does that say 10 for?
Because they put in all vehicles.
Why don't you read it?
The fire department was with us this year, and they put in all 10 of their vehicles as long as they're all up and running. They've been with us since the beginning, so they've always huge support from them. East Brookfield Fire joined us this year, Leicester Fire Department. We have two gentlemen that bring privately owned fire trucks, one from Sturbridge and one from Leicester also. We had Oxford Fire Department, and we had Paxton for the first time this year. The guys were very excited when they showed up.
Yeah, they had a good time.
They were funny, weren't they? They were very excited. On our floats, we had Queen Elsa with us this year. That was Jen Thoreau. She does little princess parties, and she froze to death, literally frozen on the back of the float.
Really?
What she didn't realize is she was in full costume with the glass slippers and everything. They were like plastic, like toes out slippers. That we had a wall on the float so you couldn't see from the waist down. So she
Froze.
was frozen.
Yes.
I tried giving her my coat twice. She said, I'm going to rough it.
Yeah,
She's in
she
character,
did.
she won't do that.
I said
yeah.
the same
God
thing. I
bless
tried
her.
to give her my coat.
Yeah.
She wouldn't do it.
Yeah, Dave Hoyt kept trying to give her his gloves, and she wouldn't take them. And the kids loved her because they were chasing the float down
Yeah,
the
they
street. So they were running behind the float on the sidewalk. Dave Durgan put in this year, Camp Marshall 4-H, Lisa Kennedy, Andrews Farm, Scout Troop 201, Packagug Lodge. The celebration committee, we always do one every year, and I want to thank Tony, John, and Gary, who came and helped build the float and put all those lights on it, which is
Basically testing lights. I can't do a nail straight, so it's testing lights and carrying wood.
And I want to thank Donna and Billy Farmer for letting us use their heated garage to do all the building, and
Oh, that's the key. That's the key. That one.
it is because
Nice and
it was
comfortable.
very cold. Simone DeLongchamp Germaine was new with us this year. She did art by Simone. The American Legion was with us for the first time this year. The Eagles for the first time this year, which was awesome. Civil Air Worcester, who've been with us past years. David Prouty put a float in again this year, which was incredible. The Grinch. Two Town Trotters Club through 4-H also put one in. Young's Tree Removal and Spencer Auto Body. It was his second year with us.
Yep.
Which they always do a great job. And we just want to thank them because without them, we wouldn't have a parade. It'd be me going down the street with lights, and that would look really strange. I want to thank the fire department again because, like I said, they bring out every single truck. The guys are always excited every year, and they really support us in everything we do. The police department, the guys are fantastic. They always have our back, and anything we need, they always help out so much. Keith Morrison.
That's what I get every time when I tell Chief Darren we have an event. I'll tell him the parade's gonna be this, and he's like, whatever you need, and then everybody's just there. So everybody knows, you know, we've done this long enough now where Chief Darren knows what to do, knows how many people have there, the fight, it works out great. I just tell him the day and everything's handled.
Yeah, they're incredible. Keith Morrison, he let us use the trailer for our float.
He owns a construction company, Keith Morrison Construction, so he has a flatbed, and since Wayne Fritz's trailer, which is we usually use, was used by the high school, Keith was nice enough to let us borrow his.
Which was great. Tara Flannery, she came up and she presented the fire department winners with the Crystal Cup.
Yeah, as you guys know, well, you were there at that town meeting, we dedicated that cup to Billy Flannery, the cup, the Crystal Cup. She came and presented that cup to the winners, who I can't remember who it was, but,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, I can't remember.
Mary E. Madden was our grand marshal again this year. We were very happy to have her with us. She rode in the ladder truck. Which one is it? The big one?
The
They
big
want
one.
the ladder on,
Well,
big ladder on.
the big one, the new one.
Took us a while to get her up, but we got her up.
Yeah, nobody brought a ladder this year.
Brent, Shannon, and Nicholas, because they build floats and drive trucks
And the
and
music and,
do the music and everything, so they're always with us too. Spencer Cable Access for filming everything for us.
Yeah,
and
they
then
film it, and then Aaron was at the studio after, and that takes a while to do the presentation. That's a good time after with all the kids and the people in there, but thank you. It always comes out great. Plus, it takes all my swears out, and it actually makes me look good. I appreciate
spends
it.
hours and hours editing because of Donnie. God bless you. Rich and Kristen Lapierre were there to help us this year as they're new to the celebration committee. And I just want to thank everybody for coming out and watching, cheering us on. It's so much fun.
As
Yeah.
always, it's an awesome event.
Yeah.
Awesome
Great
event.
time.
Too bad we had to bump the day, but I'm glad we did, because it was
right.
rainy, so. You
Came
know,
out good.
last 2 years, we've been unlucky, but up until that, they've been great, so.
I know you're tired of hearing it, but this thing wouldn't go off without the efforts of you folks, especially Wendy, and the way she has us down to a science. I've
Easy now.
been witness, and it's amazing. So thank you very much for your efforts again this year.
good job for everybody who came out and good job for you guys. for
Piece of
doing it
cake.
again.
We had
Thank you.
blast.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
I know, it's always exciting when you see new fire
We have a
houses.
blast.
Yeah, yeah, just, I gotta learn how to dress for those things, it froze
I
again.
had 2 coats on, I still froze, so.
Okay, next item on our agenda is the fiscal year 2014 auditor report. Mr. Scanlon is here to give us an overview.
We all have, you had a copy of the draft management letter in
Yeah.
your packet over the weekend to look at. There were just 2 comments there, and Tom will go over those. And then tonight I handed you the copies of the financials, and you can always pick a couple of things that are key for us, you know, how our free cash is put together, and maybe some other things. But turn it over to Tom.
Oh, yeah, sounds good.
And Lane Boucher, our town accountant's also here. So,
You're elected to stay back there.
Yeah.
I guess.
You're on your own, Tom.
I don't know if I can handle it, I don't know. So you should have got 2 reports. I kind of hit the financial one first, it's a thicker one. What is an audit? An audit is, we opine on your financial statements, see if they're in accordance with GAAP. That's the main purpose of it. It's not solely to find fraud in your financial statements, so I know it's always an expectation gap there. But the town did receive an unmodified opinion on its financials, which is the best opinion you can get. So you are in accordance, your financial statements are in accordance with GAAP, which will be good out there in the bond market. Go out there and issue bonds, so that is good news. The town's free cash was certified approximately about $966,000. I think it's always important to know kind of where it came from, because free cash is a non-reoccurring available fund in reality. Your local receipts, you very conservative on your local receipts, which is sound financial practice, and I'd encourage to keep that up. You returned about $420,000 of that 966 from your receipts. Roughly about 180 of that is in excise. So again, that's telling me you're conservative in your estimated receipts into your budgeting, and again, that's sound financial practice. You don't want to, especially with motor vehicle excise, that's kind of market driven on a newer cars, so you don't want to, it's good to be conservative in that regards. And then you had turnbacks of appropriations of about $427,000. So you have a nice mix of how your free cash is being developed. So 966, roughly about 420 coming from local receipts, and about 427 coming back from appropriations. So again, you're not reliant on one end of the spectrum. It wasn't of the 900, you weren't 900 in appropriations and 80 from receipts. So you have a nice blend. Just saying that you're doing a good job of budgeting. So you have some sound financial practices. You have stabilization funds, 4 of them, that total about 1.1 million, which again, that's a very healthy stabilizations. With those two together, your rough reserves are about 2.1 million, and your budget about 17.5 million. And an excellent reserve kind of ratio is 10%. So I think you're roughly just over 12%. So again, your reserves are where they should be. You're in very excellent condition on that. Just some other financial highlights is your budget for debt is roughly about 3% of your total budget, which is good to see. The general rule of thumb is 5% as average, so you're under that. So you're not reliant on your debt a lot into your budget, which is good. So, and then also I'd just like to point out your collection rate for your real estate taxes is about 96%, which is excellent. And what we mean by collection rate, your commitment just divided by the collections. Again, that's a very healthy collection rate, and that's telling me you're collecting your taxes, you're not moving them over to tax title. That's one of the things kind of when we look, see the overall financial picture, if you look at your reserves, we look to see if you're collecting your taxes, which is collection rate. If you have any outstanding taxes going in the back years, which you only have 1 year outstanding. So I think your whole financial picture and your whole financial team over the last year did a really good job. And I usually say your financial accountability in town of Spencer is in good shape. What I mean by that is if a financial transaction takes place from an outside person, for instance, paying your tax bill, it's accounted for properly in the system. And I think that should be patted on the back for that. So that's kind of it on the financial end of things, unless you have specific questions on it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Tom, it's, the free cash, it's about 966,000, you
Yep.
said. For people watching, why don't we want to be closer to our actual budget? I mean, why, it sounds like, I understand the need to be conservative, but why don't we want to hit the mark closer, like having, budget more tightly so we have less turnback, or maybe our budgets are too big to begin with and there's turnback? I mean, it's just, help me understand, why it's good to see a lot returned when, and if you're running a business, would you go back? Wouldn't you go back and say, gee, I need to get closer to, hitting the mark each year? But it sounds like here we don't want to hit the mark.
Well, think of free cash as a reserve. So we have plenty of towns where their free cash is low, but they have it over in stabilization. Stabilization and free cash are basically the same thing. Just stabilization is more restrictive at town, meaning you need 2/3 to get it out instead of majority. So it's always good to have some in free cash and some in stabilization. So the bond companies, when they're going out to borrow money, that's helping you out there as a reserve. So
So do they want to see one over the other, or it doesn't matter?
it doesn't matter.
They're looking at
yeah,
both.
just as from an outside, you don't want to put it all in stabilization because it's going to be more restrictive to get it out. You want to have it in free cash. So I wouldn't say, geez, overtax the citizens and, jack up like your health insurance budget and always have a turn back of $2 million. Hey, I'm generating free cash $2 million. Well, that's not a good philosophy too. You should have it in reserves. The reserves will help you in the bond market. So you want to have. So kind of like running a business is you want to have profit.
Yeah, I understand you want to be on that side of it, but I'm saying, is there a better balance, a better medium? Is a percentage of the budget, are the turnbacks?
I think free cash you should strive anywhere between 3% and 5%.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay.
Sound budgeting. Anything over that, I'm always a tax to levy type of guy. It's always good to have reserves. For instance, a storm came through several years ago in the October storm and wiped out some communities, and they had to appropriate excess of $1 million to clean up these storm costs. Well, they took that out of free cash and stabilization and didn't impact their tax rate. So it's all about smoothing your tax rate so it's not going up and down, up and down, up and down.
Okay.
Hope that answered your question.
Yes, it's a combination of things. It's just,
I would say if you wanted to get closer to your budget,
yes.
I would encourage to put then that difference into stabilization, which is just a reserve. So I think you had turnbacks of 427,000. Well, if you wanted to get closer to that number, I would encourage to have an appropriation for 400,000 to put in stabilization. So you're still gonna have the reserve, it's just gonna be under a different name.
I used to question it as well, but the state does, it's a necessary beast, I guess, in the town municipal budgeting process for the state. This state recommends that you budget a certain way and budget very conservatively, as the administrator said before, to the point where they have a recommended free cash amount that they say a healthy town should see on an annual basis. So I question the same things, like why don't we move this closer? But it's yeah, we've used those reserves before, so.
Well, I think the other thing I just want to make sure you have an opportunity to say clearly is that, we don't operate in a vacuum here, that we have to be aware of how the financial markets look at our operation and how the state looks at us. And so even though we might, if we treated the town budget like a family budget, where you really want to be on the mark, you like to run a little tighter, but it's not that simple when it comes to.
But on the family side too, I mean, at least my family try to hope to put a reserve for vacation, for, certain one-time transactions. And that's what your free cash can kind of be used for, is capital, if you're using it for capital.
I think vacation's probably a bad analogy. I'm thinking more of like, if your roof breaks at home, or your car falls apart, or a bill that you didn't know was on vacation.
Yeah, those type of things.
Maybe you get to take the vacation, I'm not sure.
My wife gets to take vacation, I usually have to work for pay
But the
for
key
vacation.
is that does hold our bond ratings, or whether
Yes.
you were a AA or whatever, so that
Which leads
puts.
to good interest rates when we
Right,
borrow.
so it's no different than somebody with a 500 credit score or an 800, it makes a difference on what rate you're gonna come back at, so.
Yeah, and like I said, I think
it's-
you're very conservative on your receipts. You don't want to get into where you're, like several years ago, probably 10 years ago now, where motor vehicle was coming in at high, and everyone was budgeting their motor vehicle, increasing their budget,
All of
and
a
motor
sudden.
vehicles the market came crashing, no one
Yes.
bought new vehicles, and same thing with hotel motel tax too. A lot of communities have a lot of hotel motels, it's economy driven. So yeah, no, I think you're very sound financial business practices you have out there.
You were doing the previous year, so this next time you look at you prepare the analysis, do the examination, it'll have our restaurant tax in there for the restaurant fees in there for the first time, right?
Yep.
Okay,
For a full
that'll be
year.
interesting.
And we use that to balance our budget this year, so it's in there as a local receipt this year in terms of the recap.
But you made a conscious effort to keep it on the low, again, on the
Yeah, I
conservative
mean,
side.
I think the state estimated we'd be about 110 to 120, I think we budgeted 100, so again, going through a first year, we'll see where we are at the end of the year. But I think the other thing, just to add, is that people need to understand is that the way we fix our buildings, the way we fix our vehicles, maintenance, make improvements to buildings, buy equipment, we don't have any operating budget line items for capital. We do it all with free cash. So a couple years ago, when things got crunched, when there was, that the situation where Tom was talking about with the excise and receipts and things were not getting turned back, and it was tight. We only had about $200,000 in free cash a couple years ago. We didn't have any money to put in reserves, no money for special articles like put money into sick leave or unemployment reserves or any reserves. And in addition to that, we had about $1.5 million in requests in capital, and all we had was $200,000 at the end of the day. So having some capital having some free cash gives us the ability to put money in reserve, but also purchase equipment that's much needed. And as you know, if you don't buy something that's needed this year, next year you're going to have that item, it's going to cost more, and then you're going to have additional items. So this money is going to go to purchase equipment, the majority of it I could see in the spring, plus we use it to balance our snow and ice budget and other funding that's necessary. So we rely on free cash.
And I think that's what I mean when I say the town is very well managed, and as foresight is, you're not just generating reserves just to have them and say we. You have plans for them.
It's anticipation of what.
Correct. So, it's one thing to generate free cash within your budget when you have no plan. That's maybe kind of what you're referring to as kind of recklessness. But that is not here, because I feel like you have a plan with those reserves you're building up, like putting them in the capital, you are spending, you're investing in your community back with that free cash.
What has been the amount that we've returned to stabilization?
Well, we haven't put any money in stabilization in a couple of years,
Okay.
but I think the last time we did was in like FY10 or FY11, we put 100,000 away. But just for example, last year, I think we used $275,000 to balance snow and ice in the spring. And if we didn't have any free cash, and if we were budgeted really tight, and that number of free cash was really low, and then you're in a situation where you have to balance snow and ice, and you have other unforeseen expenses, you've got zero money for capital. So now we're going to go back to the taxpayers and ask for debt exclusions and overrides, and, you know, just to get money, to generate money to buy equipment. You know, you've seen it through the capital presentations. Some of our vehicles are 20, 30 years old. You know, we're doing the best we can with this money. This is another way that we're able to keep the tax rate down by not asking people for debt exclusions, and we're able to buy equipment, dump trucks, and other things that are necessary with any free cash that we have left over after we balance snow and ice and other budget line items in the spring.
And I ask these questions knowing what some of the answers are going to be, but I always think this is a good opportunity just to remind people of what our strategy is, and you know, now, you know, the term free cash is a little, you know, confusing to some folks. Before I got involved with finance and all, it just sounded like it was just, had a kind of slush fund sound, and you certainly don't mean that. It's you know, there's a plan for it, and it's important that we have it for the purposes of our.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think from an outsider being independent, I mean, I think you're very responsible with your duties and with management of the town. I have no problem saying that.
Okay, thank you.
So it's kind of on the financial end. Then we have the management report, which usually letters of criticism. It's always kind of the main focus sometimes in audits. But you can see it's very thin.
We like that.
Has been that way for a
The binder's
while.
thicker than the report, which is good.
Yeah, exactly right. We really just have two recommendations, and again, when we do the audit, we're kind of assessing your internal controls. If we find some deficiency in internal control, we kind of put them in three buckets: material weakness, significant deficiencies, and other matters. Which the first two kind of speak for themselves. Material weakness, significant deficiencies, they're bad, you don't want to see those. And other matters are really just recommendations to improve operating efficiency. And it's really just recommendations. The first one, you borrowed debt through the Mass Water Pollution Abatement Trust, which is a very complicated process, I will say. It's not like a traditional borrowing where if you borrow $1 million, $1 million comes in one lump sum to your bank account, then you pay the vendors. With MWAP, you draw down as you spend. So you may be paying back debt of $1 million, but you haven't received the full $1 million yet. So this receivabl's been on your books for roughly about 18 months, roughly, since the project's been closed. So your amortization schedule has $58,000 too much in it. So you should have that adjusted by MWPAT at some point. And again, it's right on the edge of the 18-month, 2-year mark. So they're probably in the process, but I know you had a change in treasurers. I just didn't want to fall through the cracks. So I kind of hope I explained myself right on that. So the receivable, so you didn't draw down all the money, but you're paying back an amortization schedule like you did.
Right.
So this $58,000 have to be adjusted on the amortization schedule.
And that's effectively, it's closed, or that's
Yeah,
no
what it
longer-
is you have 2 years to draw down the monies. So again, let's, for instance, they award you $1 million. Traditional borrowing, you get that one lump sum right up the bat. This you have to draw down, so you didn't draw down $58,000, but you're paying back on the $1 million.
Even though we didn't use it all. So now
Correct.
you gotta make the adjustment to get that out.
Yeah.
Just for a scope, what was the size of the borrowing? It wasn't like,
Big.
I know we did multiple borrowings for the water
It was
project,
like
but it was
6.8
6 million.
million,
Okay, 6
something
million.
around that.
So, I mean, we're not far off in terms of what we drew.
Yeah, what do you do, is it single or what do we do as a total?
Yeah, what did you do as a
It
total?
was like 8 million,
I
wasn't it?
think our total was about 7.4, 7.6.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So in terms of,
So we're not far off. I mean,
right, it wasn't like we have a
Right.
million hanging out
Right.
there.
Correct.
58,000 on a $7.4 million, you know, we just have a little bit of that we need to clean up.
Make the adjustment.
Right.
Yeah, I guess my concern was more, you had to change in personnel, I know little things like that can fall through the
Right,
cracks.
gets forgotten.
Yeah,
In terms of the payback, it's not affecting the amortization that much, but it's still affecting it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that was just the interest off the bottom, it's not like you're gonna pay
Right,
that
it's not
additional
like you
interest.
front load anyway, so.
Correct, I think the interest rate's like
Right.
2.2%,
Not
right?
much, yeah.
And then our second, kind of some more informational, it's GASB 68, has to do with the retirement plans. The way it's gonna be reported now, it's gonna be completely different next year. And the retirement system's gonna provide information down to all the employers, which would be all the cities and towns members of it. We're encouraging to get involved now because there's a lot of misinformation about it, a lot of confusion about it. Who's gonna be responsible for the information? What are we gonna audit in the plan? Is the information gonna come down audited? So there's a varying degree of information that has to exchange hands. And it's for next year's audit. But again, we're always here in August, you're one of our first ones. We don't want that to get delayed. So I've talked to Adam and Elaine about it, and they both are aware of GASB 68, and just a matter of contacting the plan, how the information is going to come to the town and when. They're on a December fiscal year ending, which is a couple of weeks away. So that information should be available shortly between like March and say May. And hopefully they'll get the information down to you pretty quick from there.
Yeah, I tried looking online, I couldn't find anything.
Yeah, that information, yeah, I've been going to meetings once a month from my society, and things that I knew back in July about this and what information was going to be passed down to us as auditors is completely different to what it is now. So there's a lot of people are interpreting GASB 68 different ways. That's why we're encouraging just more time to get in on it. It's just not
Yeah, because
next
it'll
June
probably
30th.
continue to change maybe until it's in place, but I
Yeah.
couldn't find enough on it, I did try to find it, but.
Yeah. I call it the Detroit standards. Detroit, it went bankrupt because of their pensions. And again, everyone across the whole country valued their pensions the same way, same everywhere. So GASB 68 said, yeah, we gotta start measuring these things a different way.
Could that greatly affect the liability of that we are currently showing on our financials?
Yes, right now, the liability is not on your financial statements because you're paying your assessment over to the retirement. So they do their actuary evaluation, they take their assets and they say, okay, this is our total assessment to all the member towns and you're paying that. So the liability, the unfunded liability is not recorded on your financial statements, it's only note disclosed out back here. Now it's gonna be, you have to take your piece of that unfunded liability and put it on your financial statements now. And that's exactly what GASB 68 is.
This is the tipping point where year after year I've said, at what point
They're gonna
do our
come with it.
unfunded liabilities
Show up.
become an issue to us? And I think this reporting change is going to show that more, I think, as far
Yes.
as that number being.
Yes, I'm trying to get into the details, not to make people know like the liabilities, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly the liability now, that's the unfunded liability, it's really prospectively. So now it's gonna look at that and say, some of these assumptions that you did come up with the assessment was 8% market return. Well, I don't think no one's making 8% over the last 4 or 5 years, so how was that, going back and look at how you paid your assessment, this is a different way of looking at it. I know there's a chance you could have an asset on your books. I think the plan would have to be somewhere in the 70% funded.
Right.
So yeah, that's exactly, it's gonna go, just like your OPEB is on your financial statements now. So I think it's gonna take a couple years to look at this. I'm curious to see how bond rating companies are gonna look at it. They're kinda doing something now similar to GASB 66, 68 now anyways. They're looking at your unfunded liability and they're doing their own projections back. So, somewhere in the next couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah, we've been discussing this risk to financial stability for years, and I guess it's good that it's gonna be on, it's gonna be on our books a little more clearly.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, yeah, I mean, right now, it's just note disclosed, and everyone's, oh yeah, it's out there, and now it has to come on a financial statement, people say, well, we gotta do something about this. I think that's the whole purpose of GASB 68.
Just for clarification, when you refer to GASB, state, federal, quasi?
GASB is Governmental Accounting Standards Board.
And but we're talking federal standards, or these are state?
Those are accounting, so generally accepted accounting principles. That's two avenues. That's FASB, which is out there in the private sector, which is your General Electrics, Enrons, all those. And then you have the government side, and that's governmental accounting.
But these are set by a professional board?
Yep,
A nation?
Yeah, they have their
a
own
national-
board. yeah.
I see.
And they
Okay.
set the accounting principles for governments.
Okay. All right. So when you're looking, where are you looking? You said you're trying to find out
I
information.
just went online and punched it in
Yeah.
to see if it would pull for
You can
me.
get anything out there on the internet nowadays. you
So
what
I didn't
mean?
know if you could go to some state body
No, I
or
was
something.
just
It's
looking
really,
under
it's
the-
Yeah, you
it's
can
a
go
professional-
gatsby.org, they'll give you information on what it is.
But it's very vague right now. You can't, unless you understand how to interpret it. But
Correct.
it is
That's,
very vague.
yeah, I mean, things I read in it, other people go to meetings, other people say something, I'm like,
When
oh,
you're an
geez.
accountant, I'm reading it, I'm saying, I don't even know what it is. So,
Yeah, so, overall, like, yeah, Spencer's,
well, that's always good news.
yeah, I was, should be.
I have a final question.
Yeah.
This is the third letter I've been in receipt of since, being on the board. And it's something I have to say, I really don't understand. The way you say that you use our internal controls as a way of designing your report, but you don't make a comment on our internal controls? I'm not sure what that
He has in the
means.
past. If there was an internal control that wasn't working, he would.
Is that the engagement letter?
Yes.
Yeah, what that is.
What that means is,
I don't give you an opinion on your internal controls.
unless there's a problem, or?
No, I just, if I
There was
assess
an
your
issue,
internal
it
controls
would
if they're
come,
working,
right.
and then I put them into 3 buckets: material weaknesses and significant deficiencies, and I have to report that to you. But I'm not giving an opinion, like I do on your financial statements, that your internal controls are in good shape.
We would then, he would take that comment and then discuss, amongst ourselves, what are ways to do it, or talk to our peers in terms of what things can we correct internally. What have you seen out there, Tom? But he's not gonna put it in writing and saying, this is what you need to do. Because there could be multiple ways to cure a problem, and it's up to
Okay.
us to figure out
All
what's
right.
best for our organization. His job is to bring it to our attention that things could be better, or different.
And you want those cleared up by the next letter.
Correct.
You don't want
But we
those,
have to put in a response, in letters that he's sent in the past, he wouldn't put a comment in the management letter, and then it would be up to us to put in there how we would respond, and then he would come back and say, actually, that's in the follow-up year.
Correct.
He would say, the town accountant has
There's an
addressed
issue,
this, or the
how
town
would we
treasurer has addressed
rectify
that.
it? Right.
Yeah, so I mean, the main objective of an audit is to opine on your financial statements. Internal controls are management's internal controls, so I'm not giving an opinion on them. Because an opinion can be interpreted that you have no fraud going on, you have nothing wrong.
Okay, just the choice of the phrasing always, struck me.
That's right out of the.
Yeah, I'm sure
Right?
that boilerplate stuff.
That's
Word for
lawyer
word
approved
almost.
and everything.
any other questions from the board? I've got a general accounting question. It's been asked to several people, for every dollar that's spent on a standard audit, how many times multiplied by that would a forensic audit cost? I think of it, when we say we want to do a forensic audit on something, I've just been told it's like, it's 5 times more expensive than a,
Yeah, forensic audit is probably the most misused term. I'm still trying to find the standards that govern
There
a
is
forensic
none.
audit.
There are
No,
none.
that's just one set of auditing standards, and that's the SAS's. Forensic audit, it's basically you recalculate what you want. It's really agreed upon procedures report when you get down to it. So, for instance, if you think your tax collector, you got issues up there, and you want forensic audit done, they'd recalculate like a whole year back. You basically redo their work to see if they're exactly short. They can get astronomical.
Very
because it's-
expensive.
Yeah.
I paid for one.
Basically
trust me.
labor.
Very
It's all the labor.
It's
expensive.
all labor, it's all,
And it's all nitpicking.
Yeah.
It's
Just
just,
recrunch all the numbers, just.
Go through every voucher,
Right,
every
yeah,
invoice,
right.
every
yeah, like
calculation.
for an audit, we're
every-
sampling. So we're going to your controls, like for instance, all your bills have to be original, and that's a control, and then they're signed off by a department head, and they're signed off by the board. So we go in and we do a select sample, say, okay, that internal control is working, we're gonna rely upon that your financial statements aren't misstated. Or a forensic audit would go through every single
Every-
bill.
yep.
There's certain situations where they're needed. But I've seen boards will say like, oh, we need a forensic audit here. And it's like, just because you're in deficit doesn't mean you need a forensic audit. It just means some bills were paid and they were identified against the budget, which is a good thing, and that's, you're in deficit. So I'm not too sure forensic audit in that case would be, warranted. So, but yeah, it can be up to 5 times.
Yeah, and so it's just the level of detail and the cost.
And how much time?
Yep.
It's all about time.
time-based.
And it can get, yeah, I'll read in the paper and say like, oh yeah, we want to have a forensic audit. I'm not too sure you'd kind of,
Understand what that really is.
yeah.
It's a good term.
It's a buzzword.
Gives you more
Transparency.
expense.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, it's a buzzword.
Yeah. That they charge for, just,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Oh, you thinking about having one?
Again, thank you for your efforts on this, and, well, it's good to see that we're operationally, we're in good, our process is sound.
Yeah, and if you have any questions throughout the year, don't hesitate to call the office if you have some concerns, or, we're always open for questions.
Steve, you raised your hand, do you have a
Just
question?
so quick, please, I'd just like just a couple of clarifications, just so there's no misunderstandings by the public on the state revolving fund loan. It's basically a normal process, because you identify, and the phrase, this is intended as a question, that when you specify a loan amount, you try to be conservative, and you have something over what the budget cost is, and then at the end of the day, you just reaccount that. So it's pretty much a controller function that needs to be done at the end of the day. The town would have never paid back $8 million.
Right.
They would only pay back what they needed to, correct?
Correct.
Right.
And then the other aspect of this is it's really not harmful that we did what we did, because it's almost like paying an extra $100 towards your loan, because when they recalculate it, not only will your payments go under reamortization go down, but also the extra principal, the extra interest you've been paying is going to get reapplied to the principal. And so the payments actually go down that little bit more, because you've made up a little bit of difference. Is that true?
Oh, yeah, no, it's a good thing that you didn't. It's more of an accounting clear up on your books to say, hey, you need to adjust this amortization schedule. Oh, yeah, no problem.
Thanks, Steve.
No malfeasance, just accounting.
Adjustment.
We can handle that one.
Bad about the DPW either.
Tom, once again, thank you very much for your
Thanks,
efforts.
Tom.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Thanks, man.
Everyone have a happy holidays, and
You too.
See you next time.
The next item on our agenda is discussion of the request for traffic regulations from utilities and facilities.
Actually, you skipped one.
Yeah, I didn't get the up.
What's the new one?
Depends which copy you look at.
Which copy we using?
What we did was at the last meeting,
Oh,
because
we're gonna do the
you
large
didn't
one.
vote on
That's
Morris's
right,
lobby
I
house, we asked them to come back.
Right.
You
I
asked
didn't
for
want to
some
ask you in the middle of the
information.
meeting, so.
We had already set the agenda,
Right.
so what we did was we revised it, put you
Right.
guys back on there.
Right.
We asked the chief for the additional information that was requested, so you guys wanna come up, that'd be great. You got a copy of the information?
Yes.
Okay, so all it is just that report from what's happened since the last few months, you got a copy of that? Okay.
That's just a follow-up conversation on the,
Yeah. Yep. I got an extra copy.
again, this is to follow up that conversation where we were issuing licenses and some just, stood out to us and we just raised some concerns and we postponed a vote on it just to get more information and have you folks in. Yep. So, welcome. Can you give your names and addresses for the for the audience?
Sean O'Doherty,
Lena O'Doherty.
owners 126 Main Street.
Welcome. Do we,
Yeah, so just to follow up, so we go through an annual license process, I don't know how many, we give 100 licenses every year, from pouring alcohol to auto to the lodging licenses. So the last couple of years, when we've had instances where there's been, we get reports from the chief in terms of if there's any red flags, you'll say, or any things that, like a sudden spike, like I think the year before, there may have been 10% of the number of incidents, same thing with some of the alcohol establishments we have. There may have been 4 incidents, and then the next year there's 15. So that's an opportunity for us to come in. We get those reviews to ask you to come in, have discussion in terms of, was it an anomaly? Was it just, some bad clientele, if you will, that we're trying to clean up? So that's why we called you in, asked you for just some discussion. Sean was here last time, gave some good reporting. Chris, before he was comfortable, and I think the other board members were comfortable with actually issuing the license, was just to get the last few months' information, because I think we only had information up till the end of August from the chief. So that information's in front of you, so I guess turn it back to the board, you have that information in front of you. Maybe actually back to you guys. You had made the statement last time, Sean, that you had done some cleanup, or there were some clients that, problems that are no longer there. Are these some of those folks? Are these some of the people that we were talking about that are gone, or is this new people that you've talked to, or maybe just fill us in a little bit?
Two of them are
Two of them are gone.
Okay.
Yep. And the other ones were just, little minor arguments here and there. Petty little things, nothing violent or crazy.
Yeah, we talked about last time that, people with a cell phone in hand, I don't like some way someone's talking to me, I'm gonna dial 911. So
Yeah.
I think when we see resolved, that's a good thing. It's probably when you're gonna see multiple arrests and multiple things like that, that they're probably gonna have more of a concern with, but I don't know if you guys.
We just want to reiterate, we're not picking on anybody here, but I think it's our duty when we get these reports for licenses and we see intervention by our police force on anything, that we really, want to look into it and just not pass through and rubber stamp anything that comes through. So we saw these and it just raised a concern for us, so.
Okay. How do you feel now?
If you, I see a lot of resolved here, but it just, we will be continuing to look at this, and we'll have a continuing conversation with you folks and our chief. So we just wanted to get some more updated information, so I think, are there any questions from the board on this additional information?
No, I think Sean pretty much answered a lot last week. And at that point, we just needed to end the report if you look at it, and I think that's exactly what's happening is, everybody has a cell phone. You can make that call, and it doesn't matter what happens. When I talked to some of the police officers, they've responded, so that's their job. So
Okay.
I don't
In
have
the
an
end
issue.
result, it's nothing really serious. I mean, it's petty calls and stuff. It's no, there's no fighting in the parking lot, there's no fights in the hallways, stuff like that.
That's what we
And that
hope to
was,
find out.
As you know, that's,
I think we take our responsibility of licensing very, very serious here, so we just, we keep an eye on this stuff, so.
Is there some sort of screening process for the tenants that come in there, the room tenants, not so much the apartment buildings?
Screening process, yeah, you have to be working, or you have to have some sort of, I don't want to say.
Guaranteed income?
Guaranteed income.
Reference
something like
checks?
that. You're not really getting references on people, like in that type of industry. If that makes any sense.
we're talking.
Basically
rental
giving people
room,
housing.
Right.
That need it. That's what it is.
These are really rooms, they're, you're not talking apartment.
The majority, there's a few apartments, but the
There's a few.
majority is the
It's
rooms,
just
yeah.
rooms, yeah. Community bathrooms, community kitchens.
Yeah, I was in
Rental
the
rooms.
I was in the real estate business with a large company that had a large number of apartments, and the best way to do is, if you have the means, is to do, run credit checks. Oftentimes avoids that. But if you don't have the means to do that, then, that's, not everyone does it. I'm just saying it's
We're
one,
rented to people that don't have credit.
yeah.
There's no chance for them to have credit. They need a place to live.
No, absolutely, but on those credit checks,
As a community living, then they fit and they can hang out.
well, on those credit checks also have arrests. So if you,
Yeah.
if you
Oh,
have
no,
somebody,
that's-
if you have
that's
someone come
checked
through
out,
and has, 3 or 4 arrests, that's something, you're doing it blindly, you're saying, okay, this is an
Talk about a
issue.
background check, yes, that would be done, say. This
Yeah.
call's made about somebody calling in, yes,
Okay.
absolutely. But as far as credit checks and like a typical background check,
Yeah.
no, there's none of that.
Any other questions? All right, do we
this is
do a vote on?
Yeah, you need to have a motion and a second to approve the license.
Hearing no further questions, do I have a motion?
Motion?
Motion to approve, do I have a second? Second. I have a second. Any other questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? There you go. We're all set. Thank you for your time, thank you for coming back
Merry
twice.
Christmas.
So Brenda will have your paperwork for you.
Thank you.
In time.
Mail it? Perfect. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, thank you for waiting, Steve. Request for traffic regulations from utilities and facilities. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
You bring signs.
No,
I have handouts.
okay.
Sorry.
Why'd you ask me for one?
Actually, for what information you had, this is perfect. This is maps.
Okay. I remember asking for a PowerPoint.
Yeah. Well, you know, just like my kids, they ask for a lot of things for Christmas, but they don't always get it.
You got it. All right, so the first item is the electric vehicle parking only station. So you have a photo like this that's basically a rendering of what the parking station will look like. You see out there now, we have the bollards out there, we have the electrical run. We anticipate that the charging station itself will be installed sometime this week. This charging station is essentially fully funded under a grant. And then the other part of the grant is monies towards an all-electric vehicle. In order to benefit from the full funding of this charging station, we also do have to purchase that electric vehicle and execute that grant. And another requirement is that we restrict these parking spaces for electrical vehicle charging only. So that is a requirement of the grant. Right now, there's one sign like this mounted out there on the side of the building, and this is the second sign. And so that's the first item on the agenda, is to come here tonight to ask the board to put into place a parking restriction for those two spaces for electric vehicles only while charging.
So this is anybody who comes to do business at the town hall?
Anyone, actually, this charging system is going to be on, it's basically going to be connected to the internet. It's going to be registered and available. Anyone that has an electric charging vehicle can, through an app, maybe through their vehicle or through their phone, say where's the closest charging station. A lot of these vehicles only travel 50 miles. And they could be near Spencer, and it would tell them that there's a charging station at Spencer Town Hall. Will be registered, and anyone going through will know there's a charging station at Spencer Town Hall. They would come to Spencer Town Hall, they can charge. This system has a card system. Haven't seen it yet, so not fully familiar with it. I have some things I'm envisioning that you could either pay by credit card, or and I'm sure there's also a system where you already have an account, say like you pre-buy at Dunkin' Donuts, or you pre-buy at McDonald's or something like that. And so your card is on there, you put your card into the station, and so there's also, we have to set up transfers of money so that anyone that comes to use our charging station, they will pay us for the electricity that they're using to charge. And similarly, when we take our vehicle, when we go somewhere and we need to charge it, we will have a card so that we could charge it at an electric vehicle station. So hopefully that answers your question.
How long do you does your vehicle have to sit there to be charged?
8 hours full.
Depends on the vehicle.
My understanding is 8 hours for a full charge.
Right.
So people, potentially could be, who wants to wait for 8 hours? You're on your way home, I've got 5 more miles to go, I'm gonna charge enough so I can get home and I can finish charging it at home. So, so the vehicle, basically the parking spots need to be available so the stations can be used when someone's.
Does it present a problem for us with the public and coming to the town halls? I didn't know how much a
I don't think
premium
we
on
have a
parking
shortage of
spaces
parking,
are.
I think
No,
it's
because
just
we have a
people
whole
are gonna
back
need to
parking
park
lot.
more
I think
up
what-
on the upper side and in the back.
Yeah,
This
just
is
what-
gonna be over on this side.
Correct, just what normally would happen, if people came to this parking area on the lower side, on the west end, and it was full, we have that whole parking on the east side that goes all the way back, and you can fit several hundred cars up there, so.
Where this station is, John, the only ones that usually park there are the ones that live in that house over here. Okay?
Or on that Tuesday night or Wednesday night, the finance committee's
Right,
in.
when the fight is, we just have to make sure that they don't park there, that's all.
Most people park beyond that,
If-
and then access the door underneath the stairs.
Right, right. But my whole point is if in fact we're gonna take these, and those are gonna become the parking for, quote, electrical vehicle charging, then I want to clearly mark, so that if they do park over there, then we get them towed.
Yep.
I mean, this is just the
Well,
way
you'll
it's
have to
gonna
put a
go.
sign there that says.
Well, we have that sign, but you're saying,
Well,
in
I'm
addition to
saying
that, you will be
mark
told.
it, the space
You
or
need something to
whatever,
say
yeah.
that, if you do park here and you're not an electric car, that you will be towed at owner's expense.
I mean, because you're right, Bo, that is where,
And because people don't know how to read, okay, I'm sorry, and they don't look at signs, so you need to put on there that they will be towed at owner's expense, not our expense.
Good point. I would like to request to have that added to the.
thank you.
Is this the new universal symbol for electric vehicles?
There's quite a few signs available, but this one
Just wondered.
seemed like, I tried to get one that, because new to me, new to Spencer, something that kind of,
I hadn't seen it before.
it's green. You
Oh,
can get
boy,
it just,
here
you
we
can get
go.
this text, so
With the plug.
Yeah,
this seemed
it's an,
appropriate.
We're gonna also take, on the tar, Steve, and mark
Yes,
something on the tar
we'll
too?
get a stencil and we'll mark on the tar, but we won't do that until the spring.
It's springtime, yeah,
Yes.
okay. Because really what we should do there, not to be smart, but the tar's pretty bad right there. We probably should, tar it before we put the letters on there, because it's kind of,
Thank
Well,
you.
I think,
We plan to, yeah.
okay.
I think you still gotta do the pad anyways for that.
Yeah.
Right? Or is that wall mounted?
This side?
No,
No,
the
the-
station.
the-
No, it's
The
mounted
station's gonna be
against,
wall mounted.
yeah.
Okay.
There's 2 poles out there if you
So-
look, Gary,
I know, I was here when they did them.
But those are just bollards to make sure nobody hits it.
so nobody whacks it,
oh, I
right?
see.
Basically, a plate will get fastened to the wall and then the station get,
Yeah.
Okay, so we got a paved there anyway, so you're right. Bro.
Right, it's all dug up,
Right.
and like I say, from the gas company, with the service in
Right.
there, that whole area needs to be
It's gonna be done
repaved,
anyway,
right?
so. Okay.
all right.
Yeah, I guess, just for the formality, might as well have a vote and adopt it.
I make a motion to restrict the first 2 parking spaces from Main Street on the right-hand side for electric vehicle parking only, with the proper signage. The vehicles will be towed if they're parked there and they are not an electric vehicle.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion?
Just a question about fines, does this fall into the category of other parking fines for the town?
No,
No,
means
just be
they're
told-
paid.
just do it.
You just be told at your
It's
expense,
just the
John.
tow?
Right.
Okay, right, yeah.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, that's taken care of.
Next, Mr. Tyler.
So you're gonna put it page 3, I believe. Or 2 and 3, I mean, 2 is an overall, but 3 is the third page is a blow up.
So the next couple of items are with regard to, I think it's all requests for some parking restrictions.
Yep.
So I've presented this, given this overall map that we can refer back to if anyone has any questions of the detail, of the specific detail locations of the street. So I'll just kind of hold on this to see if there's a question. Actually, we'll point them out. Water Street, for those not really familiar, Water Street is basically you come on Route 9 eastbound from the police station, fire station are over here. Water Street is the road that forks to the right, goes down and ultimately connects to Chestnut Street and goes over to Muzzy Pond, which then the next 2 streets are Adams Street, which actually bears right and goes this way towards the
How village.
Howe Village, and then Clark Street picks up and continues down to Ash Street. So those are the 3 streets are Water Street, Adams Street, and Clark Street. And then the other request is just a general no parking from the intersection. So the first one I'll touch on, the no parking upon any street or road within 20 feet of an intersecting way. I copied that verbiage from the state DOT standards. As I understand it right now, the town of Spencer has a 15-foot restriction. Typical is that 20-foot restriction, and it's necessary for turning movements and so forth. Also, with regard to the Main Street project, we had a roadway safety audit. That was one of the deficiencies noted, that the town did not have a 20-foot restriction for parking. They saw that there were some issues with regard to people parking too close to intersections, which could encumber emergency vehicles. Most specifically fire trucks. One of the roads mentioned of concern would be like Mechanic Street, a tight, narrow one-way street and a difficult turn. So the request is just to change our existing 15-foot from an intersection to a 20-foot from an intersection. Did I word that correctly, Chief? Sure. Thank you.
So in other words, what you're saying is that little yellow that we put on, we have extended from 15 to 20 feet.
Yes.
What we do is you take the curbings, you've seen the yellow,
Yes.
that's what that's supposed to be for.
Which is okay, and that was my,
5 feet.
gonna be my only comment is to make sure that we clearly mark 20 feet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And if there's signs, we're gonna have to take them down?
We would have,
Parking from
yep.
this point to the
Right.
corner?
Relocate them?
And I'm
From
not
here
sure
to
how many there
corner.
are, but we would definitely relocate signs, and then in problem areas, if they become, or if they
I
are
don't
problem
know if
areas
there
like
really
Mechanic
is
Street, we
any
might
signs.
put a sign up
And
in a
most-
situation like that.
Mostly it's just
It's just
Mostly
the
it's just the
paint.
yellow. I'm
It's
not-
just the
Right.
paint. I don't believe there's any signs that I can think of anyways, off the top of my squash,
I
but
think there's one like on Wall from here, like, is it Wall or Elm? Right where the auto body is, I think there's one sign.
I think
That might be one on the wall
I
there.
think you're
yeah, I
right.
think,
think
yeah, there
there's
might
one
be,
down
yeah.
Yeah, there may be a couple downtown, but we're
But
not
most of
talking
we
about
just
20, 30,
come
50.
around the
anything.
curb and you paint it yellow,
Right.
and then that tells you not to park in that section.
And that's all I'm saying, I wanna make sure they're clearly marked.
Yeah.
Because parking's already pretty tight.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much 5 feet, how much more heartache that brings, unless it's a motorcycle or something, you know? How much additional heartache that brings to,
Well,
It's one vehicle on Mechanic Street on one side.
5 feet?
I used to sit on the
It's
safety.
a car length when you figure,
Yeah.
you meet both
Right.
sides of the intersection.
Right.
Right.
In other words, through the downtown.
Right,
So you're looking at a full car length, 10 feet.
Right.
5 feet on both sides.
Right.
And then
Right.
you're crunching the center down.
Right.
So it's.
So you're gonna lose
there's
one
be
car on
impact.
each side,
We
yeah,
have to make
definitely
sure they're
impact.
marked so that,
right, and that's what I'm saying, because it is,
I used to sit on a safety committee in a different town, and the rule of thumb always was safety outweighs convenience every time.
and again, I don't have an issue other than it's gotta be clearly marked, and I think that, okay.
Next?
Do we want to take an action
You
on that
wanna do
one?
them one by one and
Yeah.
just finish them, and then,
Yeah.
Okay, motion to, make a motion to adopt the 20 feet, intersecting way, for public safety.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
so far you're on a roll, Steve, let's see where it goes.
No issues so far.
I put the easiest ones first.
Okay.
The next one is Adam Street, and it's actually one or the other, two requests in one. Right now, Adam Street has parking allowed on the, call it the south side or the
South
right
side.
side if you're
Yeah.
heading towards the
Okay.
school.
Yeah.
The liquor store, check out
And-
liquor store, Muzzy.
There's no particular, I guess basically the point is there's no parking during the winter ban. There doesn't seem to be issues. All the properties there have parking spaces. It's a very active street with regard to school buses. And so part of it is to consider that. But the second part is, at the very least, extending the 20 feet a little bit further for this street just because of the very acute angle and the difficulty of buses making those turns, to extend it to the first utility pole, which didn't measure what it is from the intersection, but it's about 30 to 40 feet from where the road turns, where the road, basically where the curvature of the corner ends. And normally when you measure this, when you measure this 20 feet from an intersection, if you have an intersection like this, your 20, and I'll actually do the two straight. Your 20 feet goes from the curb line of here to here. The problem with that type of measurement on this corner is the curvature is so skewed and the turn is so difficult that the 20 feet, you still end up somewhere in the curve of the corner. And a lot of people park very close to this corner. It makes it difficult, you know, for the buses that turn there, many of them every morning. And you can see a shadow line where that first pole is. And so that for this one particular intersection, we're requesting that 20 feet be extended to this first pole. Choosing that first pole is a good location for a sign and a good location for the vehicles to make those turning movements, particularly the hairpin turn coming north and trying to turn this way.
That's the minimum you're requesting. Is there currently no parking on the Muzzy side?
There is no parking on
There's
this.
no
There's
parking.
no parking on the side, okay. So at most, you would want the full length and at least just that extension of
I don't
20.
But there's
That's
always
enough.
been parking on
I don't think
Adam
that's
Street
enough.
on the north side. I mean, the south side, there's always been parking there. In the
So I
winter.
guess if there's an issue with residents, like we just saw with the Church Street and the funerals.
I think the first house, Adam, when you turn on to Adam Street
Yep.
off of there, I don't believe there's any parking for any cars for that first house, and there's 3 apartments in it. he doesn't have a driveway there.
This
The
one,
the very first one, when you come off of, this one right here, when you come off of, onto Adam Street.
There's a
The first house, the house
drive,
is right on the sidewalk.
there's driveways in between, but those driveways are for the next house?
Yeah, but that driveway between the first and second house,
Yep.
I think there's only, I don't think you can get 2 cars in there.
And that's 3 apartments.
Right. And the next couple houses, they always park on the street all the way over to, not the corner house on where it comes up Adam Street here, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 6 houses, and they always been parking there on that
So what
side.
happens in the winter parking then?
Because like I say, they usually park on the sidewalk, we can't get through with a
Right,
sidewalk tractor.
That's exactly where they are.
So rather than parking on the street, they just cringe?
Well, they climb the
Because there's no
sidewalk
curbing,
and-
it's just kind of flat, so they just get up on the edge. When we try getting through with a tractor, you can't get through because the poles and the cars, you can't get through there. And that's a walking area for the kids.
Right.
And then when you get over at the corner here where Adam Street starts Clark Street, they always plow the snow
Into
right
the
up there, and there's a fence there, and you can't get through there either.
we're working on those anyway. I think we have some new signage right there anyhow.
Yeah, well, you're gonna talk to the guys plowing the street, Steve.
Well, I think we just fixed that fence.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
We did.
So, I can tell you this, guys, honest to God, in this first section here, coming off of Maple, turning on, I recommend, Bo, you probably see it every morning, those school buses trying to make that
Yeah.
turn, there's usually 3 of them in a row.
Yeah.
And somebody coming from Howe Village or whatever,
Yeah,
trying to get out.
and they just keep coming.
There's umpteen times that there was almost accidents. I've been complaining for
Yeah.
quite a while about it.
So it's going north on
People coming
Maple
down the
then?
hill and trying to take a right.
Right.
And then people
Their
coming
big buses are coming up, they're trying to get, it's a very, very. very-
Some buses are trying to come up Maple Street, and some are
Right.
coming down Maple Street trying to make that curve. And they meet right there, and
And
that
everybody's
corner
trying to
is
get up.
stupid since they did it, okay?
So that's
Since
my
they
argument is
aligned
I'm
that,
not-
that's been the worst corner they ever
I'm not so
decided
sure
to do.
that going to one pole at the length of 2 school buses trying to make that turn is enough. When you're parked there and it limits that.
Well, he's saying no
passageway.
parking at all on
Well,
that
that's his first choice, but if
I
you
know.
can't, then he's thinking,
And
somewhere,
you're saying this house doesn't have parking, Bo, so you know.
The
what's
first
gonna
house has
happen.
got 3 apartments in it.
So, I mean,
So what do we do with those
so
residents?
do we
who've
do
been
the
parking
same
there?
thing we did with the Church Street, invite all those neighbors on those 5 houses or
We're gonna
all the
have to.
residents? Before you do anything?
Yeah, I mean, if you're taking away all their parking, I mean, we're not saying it's not the right thing to do, but we gotta give them some notice and give them the opportunity.
We gotta balance out the convenience and the safety here,
Right, I agree.
safety-
I mean-
The one thing I'll tell you, and I won't sway from it, is safety is gonna take my concern over anything else, whether it's somebody's inconvenience, because it's a hazard there. And if you haven't been there, do yourself a favor and go watch. But,
Stand there from 7 to 9 in the morning and watch.
I'm telling you,
Those school buses.
it's unbelievable. There's an S10 Blazer usually packed right here, probably not too far from the handicap ramp coming off.
Yeah,
And then there's usually 2 ahead of them.
2 of those ahead of him, yeah.
And you just, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But the question remains, where are they gonna go if we?
Right.
Well, I think we could do is,
That's not our fault. That's not
one,
our fault.
like I said,
That's not our
what
fault.
Steve said is, one alternative, maybe just to extend,
That's-
worst case is what
Right.
Steve's saying is just,
I think
that
that's-
stretch where there's no houses on it, all the way up to that first house from the corner, and let them know that's the minimum we're gonna do. We'd like to do the whole thing, let us hear your thoughts on the whole thing, and then you go back to the, just that first part if you have to, or somewhere in the middle. But you gotta do something. That's what you gotta tell them.
The closest parking area is down on Chestnut Street.
Right. So, that's all I'm saying, is that first section, I'm not too concerned about the entire road. I am because they all park on the sidewalk, which is another,
Well, without a curb,
That's
we're
another
gonna be
issue.
fighting that.
How about on the rest of Adams as you go up towards McDonald's, is there parking?
There's never been any parking. Once you turn up here,
Yeah,
where
to-
Adam Street and Clark Street, there's never been any parking all the way up to the school.
Either way.
There's never been any parking on either side.
There's no restrictions though on the books for
Right.
those roads. So
You could park there,
somebody could-
right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, it's from Adams Street up to McDonald, not the Clark Street stretch, but the other stretch that goes up.
Oh, up
just to the right.
there? On Adams, they always parked on the right-hand side.
So is there room there?
Well, there is a sidewalk on the left-hand side.
There, I think what he's asking is on those houses, Bo, do they have parking available to them to get off
Most
the
every house
street?
has a
And they
place for at
do.
least 2 cars.
Right.
Yeah.
And are those properties more single-family than
Right,
the other ones?
those are,
Right.
yeah.
So-
Yeah, that's
There's only
some
one
point-
that I can think of that's multifamily, and that's the first one on the left. Used to be Greg Wise' house, but I'm not sure who owns it. But they've got
Oh,
parking
but
on the
they
lower
got-
side
right.
and the upper side.
Right.
Then you get Jerry Parent's house, and then you got the index house, those are both single families. And the ones on the right are, all single families except for one. And they do all have driveways.
So that's why you never see someone parked on the street.
Right.
There is no
Right.
park, the winter parking ban applies, is on Adams, it's no parking on either side, so
Right.
they are parking somewhere at night.
Right. So,
So do we go through the process of figuring out who the residents are, going through the street list, and then doing another workshop, hearing, inviting them in
But you just said there's no parking on either side on Adams Street,
during the winter parking?
but they've always parked there.
well,
No, what he's saying is
what
that,
he's saying,
With the parking ban, there's no
Right.
parking on either side, so I'm saying they
Right.
find a place to
Right.
park somewhere at night.
right.
If they're
So-
parking.
but it's not a problem for those houses if they're mostly single-family and have driveways. So-
And there's no
The
problem.
the upper part of Adams Street, but the
That's what I'm
first
talking
part
about.
of Adams Street, they've always parked there.
Yeah.
If you went down there tonight, they would not be parked there.
But what he's saying is, based on the criteria, is during the winter parking ban,
Yeah.
there is no parking on either side. Never mind that they are.
Yeah.
Okay? So they're already finding the spot, mostly, because it has been clear over the last 2 weeks.
That was an issue on Pleasant Street too, wasn't it, when people park on the sidewalk? Do we ticket them when they park on the sidewalk there? Or is
Well,
there
they
really no
can.
formal sidewalk to tick, you know?
If it's a clear sidewalk, yeah, we have the opportunity to do that. But
Right.
a lot of times on the narrower streets, if we're having trouble getting vehicles through, if they've got a couple of wheels on the side, we're not gonna nitpick them.
That's like Temple Street. Temple Street's a good example.
That is a good example.
From a wheelchair or from a walker.
Temple Street's very good because this,
Pedestrian will allow a little give there if they're.
the sidewalk and the road is all the same level. In Temple Street, they're always on the sidewalk down in Temple
The
Street.
give and
always.
take.
Give and
unfortunately.
take of a congested downtown. It's
Steve,
not unusual to get.
when was this picture taken of,
This is off our GIS.
Oh.
could
The
be-
aerial image?
4/24, so,
I
okay.
think it's,
09.
I think
4/24.
the- Yeah, I think, did you see the date on here? They're
Yeah,
all the
it's
same,
up-
I think it's
Up by
09.
the scale. or
Oh, yeah.
something.
Yeah, I see on one. It's March 2009.
Okay, all right.
Hey, what's the will of the board of this? Do we want to give, communicate this to those properties along that stretch and tell them we're on the verge of making a change here? And give them an
I
opportunity
think it's the
to...
most considerate thing.
What Chief Darrow just said,
If what
there's
he's-
no parking either side of Adams Street, and that's the way it's always been. That's what he just said.
For the winter parking
Winter
ban.
parking ban.
Yeah, from November till,
Just from.
But we want to make a
midnight
permanent
till 6
change.
Right, so we're talking about all the other times of the
Right.
year.
Right.
Gary's and others are concerned about this, and Steve is concerned about the
Yeah,
safety on that
okay.
stretch.
If we had our druthers, we'd take parking on that corner entirely away, and we just want to give an opportunity to maybe that one property owner and the tenants to come speak before we make the change.
I don't know where they, the house is right on the street, and there's nothing there, so he's got no lawn, no nothing to park on, so I don't know what you'd do.
Well, well, I was gonna say, can you extend, as Steve said, the most limited action going just that stretch where there is no house? From the corner to
Which
the
is where I'd
first
rather
house?
see it, right to the, right from
Up to the
there,
first house,
up
and then
to
let
our
them
first
park in
house.
front of their house.
Yeah.
And now you're not taking it away from them, I don't have an issue with that, the rest of it, but I'm telling you, you gotta clear this intersection as far back as you
That's-
can.
that's-
And also,
reasonable.
what restricts the intersection too is parking in front of the liquor store right there. On both sides, they park there.
Yeah, we've addressed that,
Let's
shouldn't
back
be
up, there should be
happening.
signage at the,
There is
Yeah,
signage.
we put signage on there, we had a whole discussion about that one.
that's another issue.
They haven't really been parking too much on the, coming down Maple Street on that side in front of the package store, but every now and then you do get a car
Yeah, the
that
running-
parks there.
There's a wide
Yeah.
shoulder though there, isn't
Yeah.
there?
Huh?
No.
Well, they narrowed the
Not
road
that
real
wide.
much.
shoulder out.
You pass, you folks who pass no parking on Maple Street, it's very
Yeah.
rarely do we get somebody parked there.
Yeah.
They
Because
have
we
a parking lot
put,
behind there and.
because it used to be a lot wider.
It used to be
We tried
wider.
to
Yeah.
accommodate the deliveries, that's
Right.
what we were trying to accommodate.
Right.
Only.
Yeah, but every now and then you get a
Right.
car that comes down and stops,
Steve,
instead of going around the corner.
I
So what's
guess
the
I
effective
need-
date of this on
I
this?
guess I need to know what this distance is. You said the first pole. What's the distance of pole, 40 feet, roughly?
I'm guessing at that. I didn't measure it.
But that's not the whole stretch, that's,
Right, so
That's
I
just to
need
the
to
house.
know, I
Yeah.
guess you gotta give us what, or I say from the corner,
To the pole?
no,
To the
I
driveway.
want to go to this first house, wherever that, it looks like there's a driveway there, but I don't think it's a
No,
driveway.
it's not a driveway,
It's a
that side
lawn
of the
or
house.
something in there.
Let me ask you guys this, you have to set up a site visit for the Church Street?
Yeah.
Do you wanna set up a site visit for this one, or maybe the other ones if we need it? And just do them all at the same time and just go walk it?
That's a good idea.
You know, and then from there, you decide if you wanna have a public hearing or not, because if it's just that top section, and it's not affecting the houses, maybe not a need to have a public hearing.
And that's my point, is I don't,
Just a notification saying that, you know, this is not in front of your property, or we would like to do more, but we're gonna do this, and, or something.
well, we try to accommodate everybody, unfortunately. You know,
But why don't we,
a lot of
after we
houses
discuss the other two,
Yep.
site visit warranted here? Does everybody feel that way? Just walk that stretch?
Yep.
Okay. So we'll put that on hold for a second and go to Clark Street.
All right, so we're gonna hold Adams, right?
Yeah.
Pending site visit.
Correct.
Refresh my memory, how do we usually make these effective? Do we make the immediately, or do we?
No, we do it as soon as we vote.
As soon as you vote, he can go out there, and if he paints the
Right.
whole stretch of
It
yellow,
becomes
it's, as soon as it's yellow, it's done.
I just thought maybe we'd build in effective a certain date, we'd make that change and give them.
Well, you could notify him and just say, okay, so in 30 days, you know, say January 31st.
Absolutely not. If we vote on it, it goes into effect. I'm telling you guys, you gotta go down there when the school's there. Come on, you gotta see it. It's,
All right, let's plan on the site visit and then decide from what your action's gonna be.
Also, I want to make sure the sidewalk's clear. Maybe on a weekend where everybody's probably home, you can see the cars there.
We usually do that, do it on a Saturday morning, we usually go up.
That's a good idea.
Talk with the neighbors.
Clark Street.
Clark Street.
Next page, guys.
So Clark Street is just a continuation, this is the Adams stretch,
Gotcha.
this is the Adams Street stretch that we just spoke about.
Knox Trails.
Clark Street is this section from Adams Street to Ash Street. Is that right? Adams to Ash? This is a much narrower stretch of road, and no one parks on it right now. I've never seen parking.
I've never seen
Maybe
that.
it's on-
We had one guy a couple of years back, Steve, the first house past the pond. They used to park right on the other side of the road, but we very nicely talked to him, and he hadn't any
It's
problems
been
since.
good so far.
Yeah, it's been, we don't normally, anybody else up the further in, I can't remember the last time a car's been parked up there.
Yeah,
I can
Because
tell
the
you,
road is very, very narrow, you just barely get two cars down.
I can tell you I've had some regular discussion with the second property to the left after the pond, because they only have,
One parking place.
yeah, so the winter parking ban isn't a problem. So, I think what they try to do is they basically ripped up their landscaping in the front to try and make a second parking spot.
Yeah, they took
But I
a
know
lot of-
they're currently in court with the neighbor, because they're battling over the parking space to the left of the house. And in the meantime, they asked if they could park over by the pond, during like one of the storms, because they had nowhere else to go, and I gave them just permission from that time. So I don't know what the outcome is that, but that's one issue there.
So which house, Adam?
This,
Yeah, correct.
The first house afterwards, Steve, there's a three-family there, then there's a little house right next
Yeah,
to it.
so there's a
There's
dirt
a chain
parking
link
area.
fence.
I was just wondering.
Oh, yeah, I know you.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
with a
that's
dirt,
all town
just-
right over here.
correct.
Yeah.
Be Mary Antonovich.
Because the neighbor wouldn't let them park in the
Right
dirt
on,
spot.
at the edge of the
I mean, you
pond.
probably put 50 cars in that dirt parking area, but the neighbor wouldn't let them there. And then the neighbor was fighting with them, saying that, you know, your tires are on my side. So they were gonna have it surveyed, they were gonna go to court, battle it out, and I said, all right, in the meantime, just, you know.
meanwhile, the neighbor's parked all over our land and has 20
On the
parking
other side of the
spaces.
street.
Well, that's the second house. The first house, I think if we surveyed that, I guarantee you that most of that dirt is on our property, not theirs.
Based on the parcel map, the
Yeah.
property line is just west
Correct.
of, just.
They have enough for a
west of-
car length, but they actually drive on our property to get to the parking area. That's what I told the lady, and I said, you know, careful how far you push this.
Yeah, because she's got like
Right.
80 feet on this side of the house, and she has three cars that park on an angle. But like you say, I think we own almost half of it, but, you know.
Well, you can see there's a building in the back there.
Right, yeah.
And you can see the grass line. That's probably more or less where the property line is. Looking from the parcel maps that we have, they have, you know, she's probably got 15 or 20 feet. You see that car that's kind of like
On the angle.
on the angle there, that's probably, the back of that car is probably the edge of the property line. So, we're not in a position to go do a survey and figure all that all out right now, but, I just urge them to have some kind of reasonable consideration for the neighbor and try to work things out. Otherwise, you know, if they keep coming to us for helping them, you know, we may be in a position where we have to figure something on that after the pond. But right now, they've got like a grill over there, they've got
Everything.
shed, I think, is over there, so. But I think that if they have that front parking area, they took out all the landscaping just to put a car there, and then they have that second spot, I think that we could be all right.
Yeah, I mean, I've driven there to pick up my kids for years at the school, and I never saw anyone there. I never saw anybody, so.
That's the only house that has had trouble with having a need for any on.
People that lived there before only had one car, new people that bought have two.
Any questions, any further questions from the board on this? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve no parking on Clark Street from Adams Street to Ash Street.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I have a second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
I'm just wondering if, we said we want to talk to the person at Adams Street there, why? It just seems like it would be nice to communicate with these people before we pass these restrictions. So it's,
Just my experience, I mean, when we tried to do this before, and I forget the road that we went down that did that.
Summit Street.
We had.
That was a plowing issue.
We were applying, but we were also affecting.
Oh, Summit, yeah.
Yeah, but we were also
They
affecting.
wanted to park on the corner.
Yep.
But we were also affecting like 10 homes there, and when we walked it, we had 10 families coming out and walking with us. They came in and spoke to us. For one home, I just, you know, is that a single-family home?
Yeah.
Yes. And they do have room if you,
Yeah, I mean, and they apparently have room. Our administrator is aware of it.
That's like he says, if they rip up they got a little
have,
thing
I
in the
mean-
front.
well, they have.
Well, the only thing that's gonna hurt them is if the neighbor comes back and they do a survey, and they only have a half a car length on the spot that they've been using for so
Right.
long.
Right.
And now they don't have, the only spot they have is where the landscaping was.
Yeah.
They're gonna be in a real pinch at that point.
Yeah.
Well,
You know, they were asking me, would I consider, you know, creating a parking area, you know, a public parking area over by the pond, and you know, which, you know, I don't know what other issues would come up with it, but just from a cost alone, with the survey and the pavement and drainage and everything else, plus it being up against Muzzy and
Right.
conservation and permitting and everything else, that's, you know, 50 grand to even see if you could even do it for one spot. I don't, you know, it's cost benefit at this point, you know, I don't think it's gonna be something we're gonna do. I told them that.
Right.
You know, but, so I said, you guys gotta figure something else out, and that's when they did.
If it helps for clarification, there is a significant difference in road width between Adams Street and Clark Street.
Right.
If you parked on Clark Street, you would be parking in the road.
In the road,
You'd be
right.
parking
There's
in
no
the
shoulder
travel
there.
lane.
Right.
You would be occupying the travel lane. There would be
The
no,
road's about 10 feet wide on each side, so when you come down, there's a sidewalk on going up Clark Street, the sidewalk is on your right-hand side. If you parked a car there, you'd block one whole lane of the road.
correct, two vehicles could not pass.
Exactly.
If someone was parked on that street.
But no, we've never had a problem that I
Because
can.
it's mostly single families there.
Right.
Except
Yeah.
for the one on the corner by the pond. Everything else is a single family and everyone has their own
Well,
driveway.
there's a couple duplexes up there, but they do have good-sized driveways.
Looks like they're bigger
On
lots.
Salem Street, is there restrictions on Salem Street?
Yep.
Whatever, yeah, right. I think,
Could we ease maybe one side of Salem Street,
No, because that's kind of narrow too.
because it's narrow?
it's probably even more narrow.
Yeah.
Narrower.
You get cars on both sides going up and down, there's no place to park. But most of those houses have driveways.
Okay.
Well, do you do a notification and say, you know, we're gonna start it in 30 days and then, pending no issue?
But what do you
move
do
forward
if you
with
get a
it?
snowstorm?
Well, they're dealing with it now.
Snow's coming.
They're dealing with it now.
Well, because
The
it hasn't
parking
been
ban's there
an-
now.
Parking
It
ban's
hasn't
there.
been an issue, it's a matter of making it official, so, I don't, whatever.
so does it have to be done tonight? I just think this is where, you know, people meet their government officials, and this is where, and these are important issues for the people who park on the street. I think the courtesy, or the idea of just letting someone know what's coming, what does it cost us? I mean, we create goodwill in the process. And so it sounds like you've had communication with them. Is it something, is it a phone call?
I have their email and phone call. You mean in terms of?
Just to say.
I reach
this-
out to them, say, we're gonna do this, and let us know if you have an issue. If not, we're gonna vote on it in the
Yes.
next meeting.
It's simple, yeah, if that's not a big.
Or do you wanna vote on it, and then I email them, and then if there's no issue, we just implement it, and you have already had the vote, and if there's an issue, then we revisit the vote.
That sounds like middle ground to me. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
But,
Because I'm ready
but
to vote on
again,
this one.
again, I'm only targeting one.
Right, just
Homeowner.
that, just that one house. That's
That
the
one
only
house,
one.
The other thing
there
is-
might be a problem.
Yeah. That's the direction I'm gonna have. I'm gonna contact
Okay,
the
that's a
one.
good compromise.
The one
I'll go
single
with
family,
that.
so you guys can
Okay.
move forward with the vote.
Okay.
I'll contact them as long as there's no issues. You won't see this on an agenda again. If there is any issues, I'll bring it back for a revote or rediscussion.
Okay.
Okay, do we have to amend the motion with that?
No? 'Cause-
Oh, okay. So I have a motion and a second. We had our discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great.
Thanks, Adam.
Water Street.
So the last one is Water Street. Water Street is very similar to Clark, which we just spoke about. Not quite as narrow, but if you did park on the street, you would be occupying the travel lane. I believe it's all, no, it's not all single family, there are a couple of multifamily. But they do have sufficient parking off the street.
And we've never had any parking
no
on
one
Water
parks
Street.
on Water
We've
Street.
never had any cars to worry about on that street that I can remember.
Okay, I'm waiting for the exception, Adam.
Well, I guess my question is, what is the need to do this if nobody does it?
Nobody's been,
I mean,
nobody's done it.
what's made you think I gotta go to the board and do this? If no one's ever done it, and it's never been a problem?
It's not official? Is that
Right.
Is that just because it's not official? And you
Well,
wanna officialize it?
there's no,
Recent, my recent amendments to the road, just the recent construction, there's also an issue here with the parking ban, they're not mentioned as far as the total exclusion, so technically they're allowed to park on the outside, or there's no parking on the outside of the street, so in theory, if somebody wanted to park there during the winter, they can park on the even side of the street, so that would be something I'd say clean up too, if you were so inclined to.
But it wouldn't have to be in a winter parking ban if we just did it now, this way. Right.
Right, and the reasons why I'm here, these are streets that we just redid. We just redid the streets and we redid the sidewalks. People don't park there, and the lane widths are just too narrow to park there, and I don't want to be in a situation where we have to deal with vehicles parking on the new sidewalks, which would basically,
And if people need parking space, we can always open up like O'Gara.
They all got driveways, they're all got,
If they needed it.
all those houses have plenty of driveways to park. There's only 5 houses there, they all got driveways to park, at least, your duplex has got it back, around the back. He's got 4 parking places in the front, he's got parking in the back. The next house has a long driveway, you can park 5 cars in. The house before that's you got a driveway, you can park 3, and the corner house has parking for 2. So, they've all got places to park.
Yeah, I'm all for making this official. If you don't put this, document this,
Yeah.
then it's gonna leave it open to something down the road, so.
And the houses on the left all have driveways.
Are there any more questions on this
So do we have
restriction?
we have safety sidewalk? What is,
The
Bill,
sidewalk,
what's
the
driving?
sidewalk on the southwest side.
We just did them, John.
Okay.
And now they have granite curbings on them. They never had that before,
Oh, I see.
okay?
Okay.
So that's what Steve's getting
It
to.
used to be just a bituminous kind
It
of
used to
road.
just come up like this. Now there's granite, so you can't, you know,
only part of it is granite. So
Yeah.
there is still some Cape Cod berm
a
there.
little bit
Well, it's
down,
more
down,
defined
down.
than it was before.
Yes.
Yeah.
So are you anticipating problems with it, or, yeah, I just wonder if we're just making work for government here.
No, I'm not anticipating problems.
We just don't want it.
I've just redid the road
Okay.
and just trying to
Government at work,
basically
John.
clean it up and put it,
This
you know,
scares me.
put the road behind me.
Well, I mean,
There's no parking on there now. It is, you know, the alternative to Route 9, so there can be some travel,
it's a high-traffic street.
high-traffic
Cut-
street.
Cut across.
And it's this type of street that's just not appropriate for parking. There's no shoulder. You'd be parking in the travel lane.
Right.
we're also inconsistent. I mean, if we're
Can't
gonna
do-
create a
right.
winter parking ban, we should be consistent to areas where it's required. We can't just say, well, no one ever parks there, you know? I just think we should be official on it. And we're not getting any additional fees out of this. We're not growing government in any way.
We're
putting
not
an extra
taking
li-
away.
Yeah, we're putting an extra line on a winter parking ban.
Take away something they never had.
Right. That being said, Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to make Water Street a no parking on either side.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Opposed. I'm still not, I just don't see the point of getting involved in the street where there's no problem. No, but it carries.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
Steve, I'll let you know
So
when
we're gonna
the site
schedule
visit.
we're gonna schedule the walkthrough
I'll let you know.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
And if we do have a public hearing, I promise you I'll have PowerPoint at that point.
You already got it.
He told me he was gonna bring it down, so I'm just gonna mess with Steve and not bring it down today.
I'm trying to save electricity costs.
Right.
Well, it went over. Thank you. Those of you that I will not see, have a Merry Christmas.
Same to you, Steve, thank you.
Everybody.
Happy holidays.
Oh, yeah, you say that now.
I'll see you.
I know, you'll see me again.
And me.
Next, we
Thanks,
have,
chief.
Is there any snow forecast? Anybody see?
Yeah, there is actually.
Sunday.
Oh, really?
I thought it was over the weekend.
You want my coat?
Okay,
Chivalry's not dead for both.
not yet.
Action item, set town administrator goals. I understand you consolidated the list.
I brought these up at the last meeting, I had the draft. The only comments I received were from you, Mr. Chairman. You asked that I add some discussion regarding, under the first one, adding the pavement management study review, meeting with the FMPC, and then talking about a possible major road project. I've already turned Steve loose in terms of asking him to ask the consulting engineer that did the report to update it, using our Chapter 90 funds to do that. So we would have that for use. And then in addition to that, I added number 5, which is now that we are completing this downtown planning study, that has an economic development component to it severely, so, is working with the Economic Development Committee, finalizing, getting those 2 final spots filled, and then turning them loose with the action. There'll be an action plan in that report, so it would be asking them to move forward with implementation of that.
Now, you and I discussed it, refresh my memory, so I'm not trying to nail you on
Yep.
anything, but initiating the Sugden Block type committee for Maple Street, did we decide that was gonna be just a line in here somewhere?
Yeah, I can, I think we can do that as part of, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I can just add it, I can add it as a number 6.
It doesn't have to be, let's just.
Just do what we did
establish
last
a
time, I'll
committee.
just draft the charge, you guys vote to approve it, and then we'll get the committee ball rolling.
Yeah, it doesn't
Well,
necessarily-
you know what we talked about? We talked about the economic development committee, maybe that being their,
Yeah,
one of their first pieces of things is to turn it over to the economic development committee and have them begin to look at possible uses for it, and have that committee, rather than creating another committee.
That's where I thought.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
we vision that site as,
That's fine.
economic development could still be housing, economic development could still be, you know, residential use, it could be something, I'm not saying it is, but
Right.
an economic development would be some type of enterprise that the town would put forth into doing something with that property.
I just want this as a bullet somewhere so that we in this year, we form some kind of body where we start looking at, you know, recommendations for that property or moving forward with a RFP on it.
I would say, why don't we add it as a line to the economic development committee and have them as a, you know, as a kickoff project.
Okay.
Well, I mean, they have a couple projects, obviously. There's already one set up with the second committee. I think rather than having a committee every time something new comes up, if we had one committee that was designated towards certain projects, that would be convenient. And, you know, it's hard to get people to join committees sometimes with everything that's going on in everyone's lives. So I would just add it as number 5. So that's the only thing I've done, is on number 4, I added a 5th bullet point about the pavement management study, and under 5, I added a new number 5, Economic Development Committee, and then I would add a line about the Maple Street school.
Any issues from the board?
I'm glad you added that, Adam. I didn't get back to you, but it's hit me today as I was thinking about this, that it was a little, of course, we're always thinking about the budget, and a lot of the points have to do with how we're gonna save money and streamline. This seems, I'm glad to see point number 5, because it's a little more proactive. It's not like because we're not gonna balance things out by continuing to try and cut backs and streamline. There's a limit there. So I think it's good to get this out as a
available.
positive, you know, forward-moving
agree.
issue for you to give some attention to. So,
Yeah.
and I know, and I think I remembered an earlier discussion about the Economic Development Committee, and I know you put it in here that you're not the Economic Development Officer, but I think it still makes sense to have it in here with your goals. Sure. So,
Yeah, I had that conversation with the administrator, and said, it's really not gonna be he's gonna facilitate the process to get the recommendations out, and I thought it was important. And we've been trying to do this for a while, you know, so,
that's good.
I agree. It should be on there, stated some way as a direct, indirect, or facilitating goal.
Sounds good.
Any other issues or comments from the board? No. All right.
Carry on.
All right.
We have, just formality, you might as well, we have to vote on it. Vote to set the town administrator
Okay.
goals as written and amended or something like that.
With no questions, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve the established goals for town administrator
With the addition.
with the additions. Do I have a second?
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? You have your goals.
So our next meeting is January 12th. It's a business meeting.
Is that a Wednesday?
It's a Monday. All meetings, yeah, right.
Yes,
Well, I'll remind you that morning. Or at
So
5 PM.
So your class schedule now is?
I'm all done
shifted?
officially with classes. All I have is a thesis project.
Oh.
So there's no class for that. So
You're not going to take a pottery class on Monday or
Yeah,
anything, are you?
anything like that.
I'm gonna write a 100-page paper instead.
There you go.
Solving all our problems.
Perfect.
Take a lot more than 100 pages, John.
you gotta put it.
So having nothing else on the agenda, first,
Okay.
the Board of Selectmen would like to wish all its citizens a happy holiday season. Enjoy, be safe. And with no other items on the agenda, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion, I have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
See you on January 12th.
you.
Happy New Year. Happy holidays and Happy New Year. Take care, folks.